Hey, welcome in. I'm Rita, and this is The Story I'm Telling Myself, a podcast about uncovering the beliefs that hold us back and rewriting them with truth, courage, and clarity. If you've ever felt like you're standing in your own way, you are not alone. Let's get into it. I'm laughing at myself because I literally hit the go live button and thought, wait, what day of the week is it? But it's Wednesday. And if you are here with us live, thank you. We appreciate you joining us on this Wednesday. For many of you, it's going to be commute time because even if you're in the Midwest, and especially if you're living like in Chicago area or something like that, you're probably hopping out of the office closer to 4 o'clock than 5 o'clock to beat the rush hour traffic. And if you're on the West Coast, hey, it's your midday break. So we don't go that long. We'll only be here 30 minutes. So spend 30-minute break with us and let's talk about transition with today's guest, Suze. So if you're listening, hop in and say hello. So tell Suze, show her some love for joining us. Suze Shaner-Brodax. I guess I said it right this time, right?
Yes.
It's funny because the way we met one another, I don't think we even knew each other's last names because last names were not important. Is here to talk with us about transition. So just take a moment, Suze, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a leadership and organizational development consultant, and I do executive coaching. And I have a very eclectic background, having worked for Fortune 500 companies and was originally trained as a mental health clinician. And I'm currently in seminary being an interfaith minister, and I'm a certified holistic health counselor. So I just kind of bring in whatever makes sense in terms of helping people realize their goals and objectives. Let's just put it that way.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. But I mean, it really where we are, I think currently is in a place where we are understanding that we are whole beings and we've got to stop compartmentalizing our lives and really starting to think more in more integrated ways. So it makes total sense to me, Suze, total sense, and why I'm a fan of what you're doing. sagelead.com. That's where you're going to find Suze on the internet, sagelead.com. And that's going to give you all the links that you need. If you want to follow up and have more conversation with her, you can reach out to her on social. She's got a YouTube channel, so you can follow her for more content, which is always super exciting. But one of the most interesting things about Suze's journey is that she has stepped in and out of the position of self-employed and employee no less than 3 times, which I know as I personally have been in that place where I'm like, do I really want to do all this work of being an entrepreneur, of owning my business, or do I just want to go work for somebody else? Because I'm a practitioner at heart. That's the part that really jazzes me up. It's not the figuring out the social media and doing the billing and all of those things, right? And so I know so many other people that I've met in my journey walk this question all the time. Suze has done this 3 times, and she's going to talk to us about her why behind that, and also all of those little stories, that narration in the back of her head that has driven her to those questions, those point in times where she asks herself, should I stay the course or is it time to go back? So Suze, just set us up a little bit. Tell us about the first transition that you made.
Okay. Yeah. The way you say it, it's like, okay, am I on the remedial or AP plan in life? I'm not sure. Probably one or the other. But the first time I was 5 years into my work life, and I had started up a training and development department at a company, and they eliminated the training. So I was laid off, and my boss loved what I was doing. So she actually went above and beyond and got me this fantastic outplacement package. And because of my varied background, even to that point, the outplacement firm hired me to deliver career continuation outplacement services. And interestingly enough, I was one of the consultants that got on the project. This is many years ago at IBM, working with people who were just notified that they were going to be laid off. It was part of the first involuntary layoffs ever. So I did that for a couple of years. And so that was a transition that I found myself in. It's not one that I necessarily chose, but then I thought, okay, this is cool. This integrates my background on training and development, my background being trained as a counselor, because I was trained as a therapist. And I thought I can integrate all this. However, I realized that I felt like I needed to have more breadth and depth of experience of what it was like working internally for a company, because I had only done that for 5 years and I had a couple of different experiences in that time frame. So I consciously went back inside, and that was right after I got married for the first time. Been married a couple of times, but got married for the first time. And so I started up, this tends to be so the first time I had a training job, I started up a training function. The second time I started up a human resource development function. So I'm very much an intrapreneur type, very much creative strategist. So I started up a HRD function at a company.
Can I pause you just for a second before you go any deeper? Because I just want to pause and acknowledge to our listeners that this may feel familiar, because you said it wasn't by your choice. That was a lot of people in COVID. A lot of people ended up turning side hustles or ideas for other self-employment that they could have into their earnings base during COVID. So a lot of people have found themselves in that similar transition that you just described, Suze. And hello, Christy. Thanks for joining us. So glad you are with us today. And now with the economy being in the uproar that it's in, and so many companies tightening the belt again and looking hard at their payroll dollars and making a lot of decisions to lay people off, you might be one of those people that just got that notice, or one of those people that's sitting over here going, when's my notice coming? Because I just feel like it is imminent. And so you're going to definitely want to tune in and listen to more of this. But I just want to acknowledge that I think there are a lot of people that are in that first transition in this moment that really recognize themselves as what you described. But I love the fact that you said, look, I stepped in, I got an opportunity, I did this, but then I realized I don't want to be this narrow. I need to grow or expand. And that was the story that you were telling yourself, is that I might be good at this, but this is more narrow than where I see myself. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And there were two layers to it, because even though I was doing this consulting work, it was still, we wouldn't use that term back then, but it was a gig thing. So I was not a full salaried employee. This was an outplacement firm that said, we'll hire you on a per diem basis. So it was still kind of catch as catch can. And I thought, either I'm going to, put out my shingle and try to generate more of this. But yes, more to the point, I thought, you know what, I ultimately will be of more value to my clients. I just felt like I need to have more breadth and depth of experience. So that's why I said, I'm going to go back, I'm saying inside, working for a company as an employee to get that experience. But to your point,
I just say, I want to applaud the honesty here. Because all of us know this, who have started our own businesses, that it takes a while to get the income flow going. And so it is that scarcity, that feeling of scarcity, of lacking, can be one driver. And sometimes that's an important driver. I mean, especially when you're caring for family and you've got children and other people that depend on you. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that that's not important, because I know that it is. But it's an interesting place that it puts us in our mindset. So even though you were feeling a little bit of that, what you leaned into was this bigger opportunity you wanted to create in your life.
Yeah, that was the bigger issue, meaning, and it was stemming from my internal makeup, meaning I'm a very high achieving person that has goals and objectives, and my ambition that I thought, okay, I want to see how I can be of optimal value to my clients. And I feel like I have 5 years of experience. Who am I to be? I mean, I had people when I was working at IBM, they were like, who are you going to tell me how to find a job? I've been working longer than you've been alive. And I was like, well, I can't argue with you there, but I've probably been on more job interviews than you, but but anyway, so yes, I leaned into, because in life we can either be pushed or pulled. So I leaned into being pulled, meaning what was my vision? What was something that would be more generative, a bigger vision for myself?
Okay, we're gonna repeat that because that's some deep wisdom right there. I warned you, Suze, I was gonna do this to you.
Okay.
Repeat that one more time because that's some wisdom I want people to really let sink in. This idea of moving from push or pull.
Yeah, because when we push away from something, it's usually fear, anxiety, something I don't want. It's a negative thing. And when we are pulled towards something, it's usually something proactive, more visionary, something that I want, that I desire, I yearn for, that will get me up in the morning. And it's usually very connected to having a sense of purpose or meaning. Like it's different for everybody. What lights you up inside?
Yes, so I'm going to throw that in the notes right here. Are you moving from push or pull? I mean, it's important to do that self-check, right?
Yes, and the reality is we're complex creatures. Sometimes it's a little bit of both, but what's the overriding one? And especially if you've had a shock, which many people are going through right now, as you said, Rita, especially if you had a shock where I didn't see it coming, where you're laid off, and it's like, oh my gosh, what the heck? What am I going to do now? And many people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. And, at that time I had a ton of student loan. I'm somebody who worked my way, had a gazillion jobs, paid for my undergraduate school, paid for my graduate school. So I'm not somebody that, like, I had bills. Okay. And still I was like, well, how can I do this in a way that I want to,
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, I did it for 2 years, and then I was like, no, I want more. I want more, from more of a visionary place versus a fear place. And then, of course, I'm not saying I didn't go through my own process in terms of, okay, how do I get that next job? And I was fortunate in that the next job that I got was another cool, fantastic, creative opportunity, because I was very clear even then on my values, and really, I have really 4 things that is the common throughput for my entire career. It's that I'm highly creative. I'm really an artist, so I want to do work that's creative. I like autonomy, so I need a certain amount of freedom, and something where I'm growing, stretching, learning. And also, everything I've ever done has been all about helping people realize their potential. So I was like, okay, this fits all those buckets, right?
Awesome.
And so I had a chance this was an HMO in the 90s, to start up a HRD function. And so that was really cool. And then I literally said to myself, I'll do this for a couple of years, and then I'll go back out and consult again. I'll have enough experience. But then what happened is, I mean, there's opportunities we choose, and opportunities that choose us. Let's put it that way. So I kind of had this in my mind, and I had just had a baby, and my company was going through an acquisition and a merger. Let me tell you, I will just say this was the year that I earned my stripes big time, meaning within 4 months, I had to negotiate my way out of my old job, my new job, my divorce. I still had an infant. I was still nursing, and my daughter got breast and colon cancer, all within 4 months. So what happened in here is, because I had an opportunity, my company was going through an acquisition and a merger, and I was on the team to not only integrate with a sister company, but merge with the parent company. And they put all my work on hold. Meanwhile, I was getting recruited away to GE. And I thought, oh my God, GE on my resume, I have to do this. Then I'll go out on my own for a couple of years, right? But all this happened at once, meaning I was under contract at my old job, so I had to negotiate my way out of that. So it was a lot at once. And I was literally still nursing. I don't even know how I was able to produce milk. Sorry, guys. Because it was a stressful time. And then I did go to a GE business, believe it or not, where I had to start up a leadership and professional development function. They were talking to me, and I said, "What do you need me for? You're GE. People benchmark against you." But
right?
It was
yeah.
Yeah, it was one of their businesses. So this was very much, first of all, I was a single parent at that point. So I needed a job. I could not, I needed the benefits. I needed a job. I needed a steady salary. And it was something also that, and I was in the process of, and I bought my first house as well in there, throw that in there. So I literally set myself up. So talk about work life integration. How do you juggle it all? At this point, my daughter was a year old. So I set myself up, bought a house 5 minutes from the office, set myself up, daughter in the corporate park, the whole shebang. So it was all kind of doable. And it was work that was creative and interesting and challenging for me. And that was a challenge. So I said, okay, I'll do this for a couple of years. But then guess what happened? I got a recruiter call, and and it was so I said to myself at the beginning of the year, I want to move more into leadership and executive development. At GE, that was like my fifth job, and it was like too overloaded. But I got a call from a recruiter to go do this, exactly what I said I wanted to do at IBM. And I was like, okay, got to do this. So I got that job, and I said, well, I'll do this for a few years. And what happened is, I was able to do some really cool stuff working with colleagues that I loved. So I stayed for a number of years. And then what happened is they were going through a reorganization at the same time, literally within the same month, that my soon to be new husband and my two stepsons, who had just lost their mother a year or two earlier, moved into my house. We were going to get married the following month. They were reorganizing my department. And by the way, in the midst of all this, my husband moved from another state, lost his job. Anyway, they said, you don't have a job anymore. Then another department was going to hire me to do the same thing I was doing, working externally for their clients. Anyway, what it would have meant is that I would have been on the road out of my house Monday through Thursday. And my family was going through a huge transition. So here's what happened. And I'm one of these people that read 3 textbooks on blending families. And I said, okay, it'll be a challenge, but I'm up for it with my hyper, ambitious mode. Well, here's what happened. I was in the middle of a meeting with one of my internal clients. I supported the top 300 leaders at IBM. I was in the middle of a meeting with one of my colleagues, and I suddenly had no peripheral vision, and I was seeing spots. I was inside. I was panicking. I thought, oh my God, am I going blind? What is happening to me? Now, today I would have said, excuse me, but I felt like I didn't say anything, and I was sitting there, inside, red alarms going off. The meeting ended. I pulled my colleague aside. I said, something's going on. I'm going blind. She said, quick, we're going to get an ambulance. I said, okay, I don't want any drama. Anyway, they got me to the hospital. Turned out I was having a migraine. I never got headaches. I had no idea. Long story short, even though my mind was, and my drive was saying, I got this, my body was screaming at me, because what happened is I started getting migraines every day. My asthma acted up, and I lost my voice. So I couldn't speak, I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't think clearly. So my dad said this to me. He said, do you know what a migraine is? It's when you want to run, but you're trapped.
I love that. I love
and
that.
I was like, that's it. So this other part is a very long story, but I realized, you know what, there is too much going on. It is too much. My body is telling me, no, you cannot do all this. No matter what your mind thinks, your body is screaming at you. So pay attention. So,
well, it's very reminiscent of many of the stories that you and I have listened to people speak on the Wahasu stage about burnout, yes. Right? It's very indicative of what happens to people, where, literally they are telling themselves the story of just push harder, just push through this, but their bodies just absolutely give out and say, no more. Can't do anymore. And it's so hard to reconcile those two things, right? Your inner achiever who is over here going, nothing can take us down. We can do anything, right? And
yeah. So one of the most humbling times in my life, because I pride myself on, like, I'm a multitasker. I'm very strategic. I get a lot of stuff done. I can, creative. No, you're not Superwoman. You can't do everything in the same day, week, month, or year, maybe over the course of your lifetime. No. And so it was put my marriage on hold, literally. And that's a whole story there. My memoir will come out. um, and, but I did, some might say, a very courageous or stupid thing. I don't know. But I placed my family first. And I said, you know what? I cannot be on the road Monday through Thursday. And now's the time. And my daughter was 9 years old. And I thought, okay, I have a few more years here before, who knows, when she's a teenager, she might not want to talk with me. You never know. So I said, and I worked every hour in the day, except between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Meaning I'd stay up late and do what I had to do after I put my daughter to bed, or I'd get up really early. And I worked for very demanding companies. And when you're a high achiever, they tap right into that, and you're a recovering perfectionist.
The more you give, the more they will ask for, right?
Nobody, this is what I always say to my clients, nobody will ding you for being a perfectionist or overachiever unless you're so stressed out that you're affecting everybody around you. Otherwise, they'll take as much as you're willing to give them. It's up to you to set the boundaries. So I left.
By the way, I think this is probably sounding familiar to a few people, especially right now when people, again, they're operating out of fear and anxiety. So I got to prove my worth. This story. If you're telling yourself this story that I've got to sacrifice these other areas of my life and prioritize my professional self because I've got to hold on to this job, that may not be an accurate narrative of how things go down, because I would tell you that Suze you're probably getting this from listening to her story. She is one of the most driven and accomplished professional women that I know. And sometimes it doesn't matter. You still get told that there's not a job for you. Right. So there's this false narrative sometimes, this unreliable narrative that you might be holding on to that says, just keep pouring more and more and more in, just do whatever it takes. And the thing I want you to know is, if it doesn't work out, don't let your inner achiever tell you that you failed, because it's just a false trap.
Well, I think that you're raising some really important points, meaning failed according to whom? Meaning that I was told at the company a year or two earlier that I was the star of the department, given the highest raise ever, blah, 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 whatever. Said that I was on the fast track to be, whatever, the high potential. And I thought, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. But I don't know if I want, listen, you always have to ask yourself, when you're going for something, or you think you want to achieve something, what is the sacrifice? What do I have to give up? And I thought, you know what? I had my daughter relatively late in life, and she's not going to be collateral damage. I was like, and then I'm trying to blend a family, which is a whole other ball game. And I said, you know what? No, it's not. I will not sacrifice that. So I appreciate that you think that highly of my capabilities, but I'm not willing to give up certain things to get there. Now, the world's changed a little bit, but it's always up to and this is what I've worked a lot with my clients on, who are always, and a lot of times it comes down to managing your motives and your values, like what drives you, what motivates you, what lights you up inside, and what your values are. And sometimes if you like, wow, I want that job, but what's going on, your value of family, sometimes it's like, how do I work that equation so that I can work my work. I never use the word work-life balance. It's more work-life integration. And now with virtual work, although I've been working, even when I worked at these companies, sometimes I could work remotely. I've been working remotely, full or part-time, for over 25 years. So it's not a new thing for me. I was on Zoom and Skype and WebEx before COVID. I was just like, wow, now I have a lot of company. So, so I think that's what it really raises for people. So I was clear on what my non-negotiables were. And it's like, I want to have a life. I'm willing to work hard. And by the way, I'm one of these people that has always taken vacation and not brought my laptop. I even said that once to a manager, I'm not going to bring my laptop. And he said, well, I don't even know why I said that to him, because I never did. For some reason, I felt like I had to say that. I'm on vacation. And he said, well, my boss expects that. And I said, okay, well, guess what? I'm going to Disney World. I'm not bringing it. So, oh, well, if it's career limiting, it's career limiting, but I'll work hard for you while I'm here. So anyway, I left. and some would say, dumb or courageous thing, I don't know. And so that's when I started my business. And so here's how it worked for me for the first. So it was more of being clear on my values at that time. What was I telling myself? And it's like, okay, now's my time. I can finally go and do this. And yet there still was a lot of stressors on me because at that time I was the sole breadwinner for my family still. So I say this knowing full well the realities of needing to bring in revenue. Okay.
Right.
And so I hustled, and because I worked for a number of different companies and my old bosses and colleagues were at other companies. So I would just, this is how I did it at the beginning. I would just call them up and say, hey, can we have coffee? And say, what are you working on? Oh, okay, I can help you with that. And so it was very organic. I mean, some would say that's networking and business development, but it was more like I was just meeting with people who, my friends and colleagues. And so I didn't even have a website. I would not recommend that today. This was 19 years ago, but I didn't even have a website for 2.5 years. I just kept getting work. And I said, okay, at this point, I probably should have a website, make myself legitimate. And I've redone that a few times in that time frame. And to your point, Rita, is that it takes a while for you to have something that's sustainable versus, especially when you're coaching and consulting. And when I first, I'll say, came outside, meaning outside an organization, started my own business, there weren't a lot of people who had my kind of background, having worked for, Fortune 10 companies, and the breadth and depth of experience that I had. And so I don't want to say it was easier. It had different challenges. Yeah, exactly. Gary says no one will prioritize your life for you. Absolutely. And so this is where you have to empower yourself. And if you don't know how to do that, or you're afraid to do that, then you get the support and resources, whether it's anything, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a colleague, a coach, a therapist, a minister, somebody to support you and help you get the courage to set your own boundaries. So
I'm gonna say hello to Lisa. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. And I'm gonna just zip you along a little bit. So
okay.
You went out, you're building this business.
Yes.
And then something happens and you have this epiphany that, you're going to become an employee again. So fast forward a little bit for us and tell us about what was going on in your mind that got you to that place where you were like, oh yeah, going back inside is where I want to be.
Well, that's a good question. And thank you for zipping me along. Because I could go high level or too much detail. So, what? I've always kept an eye and ear out of just kind of sort of paying attention to different jobs out there. Not that I'm not always looking for jobs. I mean, when you're a coach and consultant, to some extent, you're always looking for work. But like once a year in that time frame, I'd sort of like go and have a couple interviews and say explore, and then I'd always be like, nah, I'm good. This time, a couple of things happened. I think I had a dip year. And again, that's a factor, but more to the point, I had an opportunity to go work for a nonprofit. It was the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I had a loved one pass. And so I felt like it was an opportunity, and this loved one had been very good to my family. So I felt like it was an opportunity to really work for this organization. And I want to say give back in a more significant way, even though I've always done volunteer work. And so I said, well, this is what I said to myself going in. So talk about the story you're telling yourself. I said, well, I really want to see if I can make a go of this. I haven't been back inside in like 7 years at this point, so I don't know. And I've always started up functions. I ended up having to revamp this talent management function. And I said, I'll do it for a year and then I'll see where I'm at. And my daughter was a junior in high school, and I was a single parent here at this point. And I did it for a year, and I did a lot of significant work that really revamped the function. And I just felt like at that point, it was my daughter's senior year in high school, and I left for two reasons. I felt like there were things about the culture that were no longer in alignment with my work lifestyle. And I also felt like, even though the organization does tremendous good, and I'm so grateful to it, I felt like I had left my mark and done some good things for it. I also felt like it was my daughter's, because I was commuting an hour each way, and I felt like it was my daughter's last year in high school, and I wanted to be more physically present. So
Yeah. Right.
that's why I went back in, and that's why I left again.
So the pool there, and we're kind of in that space right now. My youngest is about to graduate high school, and then she's going to head off to college, and I've called this my year of change because a lot of things are changing, but part of that is it makes me want to make different choices about certain areas of my life.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about around the stories we're telling ourselves that are the pull, right? Yeah. When we want to prioritize family or other relationships or even ourselves in some ways. So I love the fact that, here's an organization who is speaking meaning and purpose for you, but you gave yourself permission to walk into that for a season, however long that season lasted.
Yes. I love how you're putting that. That's exactly it. It's a season. And also the stressors of the commute and just other things going on. I actually got sick. I got sick. So I thought, okay, no, this is like, I'm very, and that's also another thread. My body speaks to me very loudly, and I'm getting better, and I've gotten much better about listening to it. And I have a very finely tuned nervous system. And I'm one of these people that's eaten organic for 30 years. I'm a health enthusiast. I take really good care of myself, although it doesn't sound like it. But when I drive myself too hard, that's like, okay, step back. So, a lot of things. I thought, it was a season, and I felt like I gave it my all, and I left some really good things and went back to the next chapter. And I had kept my LLC open because I still was, and they knew that, finishing up some things. And so I really just picked it right back up. And again, got involved in some other kinds of organizations from a coaching and consulting perspective, and keep my eyes and ears out there. And then 4 years later, I had an opportunity to do something different again that was working for one of the largest consulting firms in the world. And I thought, well, I've been doing this, and I've kind of, I'm schooled in it. I do have a master's degree, and I was trained at GE and IBM on consulting. And so it's not like I wasn't schooled in it, but I thought, and I figured out a lot of things on my own in my own business, but I thought, hey, this would be cool to go and take my skills and contribute. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Chrissy's saying, when we do not listen to our body, it becomes louder. Yeah. Funny about that. Our body, and there's plenty of research on this. Sorry, quick aside here, because since Chrissy jumped in there, thank you, is that actually, and this gets to some of the Wahasu stuff around well-being, is that we think that our minds are here. Our minds we now know this in some of the work of Daniel Siegel around mindsight. Our minds is our entire body, and the electromagnetic field of our heart, and our heart intelligence is actually, and our gut intelligence is actually as strong or stronger than what's going on in our brain. It's all interconnected. We are all interconnected, complex beings. I very much have always approached my life and my work from that perspective, multidimensionality. And so, I had to do a lot of my own work around really listening to my body. So, and tuning into those subtle cues, because if you don't, it just gets louder and louder and louder. The volume goes up. So anyway, I had an opportunity to go work for a large consulting firm, and I thought, okay, this is great, and so I did. And this was one of those jobs where you are living out of a hotel Monday through Thursday. And at that point, my daughter was grown. And I thought, I can do this. And what happened is, first of all, I was not getting I was working on projects like 20 years ago, like taking dictation. So I was like, this is not only, it's not about my ego, like this is insulting, but I thought, they're paying me too much money for this. They're not really leveraging me, and I'm not really engaged. I want to get in there. I want to be doing more than what I'm doing. So I wasn't.
I've been there where the promise of a job, where they tell you this big story about about this job, about how amazing it's going to be. And then you step into it, and they shove you off kind of in a corner a little bit. And It just doesn't manifest at all like what you have in your head. Yeah.
Well, I will say here, it was like I had to still go and find the projects. And then I kept getting on 2 and 4 month projects. So every 2 or 4 months, I had to go look for more projects. And my husband said to me, I thought that you went to work for a company so you wouldn't have to keep looking for work, looking for projects. But, so a couple of things happened. I thought, yeah, if I'm doing this, why wouldn't I just do this for myself? And by the way, I could be more, pick and choose projects versus taking something because I have to be chargeable or billable. I would have a little bit more discretion. And also because of the lifestyle, eating out all the time. I'm somebody I'm a gardener. I have organic gardens. I love to cook. I'm a foodie. I eat really healthy food. I was like, so again, I got sick because I was eating out of a hotel Monday through Thursday, living, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay. So I said, did it for a couple of years. It was great. I did do a couple of cool things, but I thought, and again, I had my LLC open because they knew I was finishing up some projects. And so then I thought, okay, time to go. And so this was right before COVID. And so I was like, I said, okay, I think I'm going to start up my business, but I'll look and see what's out there. And so, this was like the whole world was shutting down. So I was sort of pursuing parallel tracks, developing business for my business and seeing if there were any jobs. Anyway, long story short, since that time, I've had my best years ever in my business. I'm not going to say that I don't continually just keep my eyes and ears open, because for me, it's all about the work and the people that I'm working with and the kind of cool creative things that I can do and we can do together. So I don't know if that helps, but it's been a journey.
Well, yeah, I feel like there's a little bit of hating that goes on. Shout out to any millennials in the audience about people's resumes, about there being too much movement in the resume and stuff. And what I love about what you're sharing about somebody who becomes fluent in transitions is that you learn to recognize and differentiate this push and pull energy part, right? And so you can always make yourself open to the universe of possibilities, right? So if you're seeking, things will find you. The universe works beautifully in that way. And so many people are getting this feedback that, they need to stay in a job longer and but look, you took a job in this large consulting firm and very quickly decided, yeah, this isn't really right for me. And you stepped away, and everybody has the right to do that. So even when you're listening to your energy, the other message here for all of us high achievers is sometimes you're still going to get it wrong. And just like smart business owners recognize when they've made an erroneous hire and they very swiftly sunset the relationship, same thing is true for us as employees. Like sometimes you walk in the door, it is not right. Sunsetting that relationship early is the right thing for you. And you, again, don't let your high achiever beat you up for that, because it's not a swing and a miss. It's just wait, that's not for me.
Well, here's what I'd say. I stayed at that job 2 years, so I didn't just walk in and leave. So here's what I would say. I would probably land somewhere in between what you just said. Meaning when I did the outplacement work for folks at IBM, they thought they were going to retire at that company, be there for 30, 40 years. Many of them got there, many of them didn't. These days, it's probably not realistic. Most people don't do that. On the other hand, people may be, flipping around. Yeah, opportunities will find you. Maybe jumping around every 3-6 months. What I always recommend, even if you're thinking, I don't know, give it a chance, because any job or relationship, there's always a 3 to 6 to 9 month transitionary period. I always suggest, I'm very much connected to nature, so I think the 4-season rule is a good one. So give it 4 seasons. And because there's something cyclical, and we're so disconnected from nature as human beings. We are nature. So I think there's something like get more connected to nature and your natural sense of who you are. I think so. I would never consider anything necessarily, I don't know. I don't really consider it a mistake. It's a learning. It's like, okay, I contributed some in significant ways at that job, and I learned some things about the company, the clients, myself, and you always take that with you, and bring it into the next situation, whatever that is. And so, um, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say about that. So I'm kind of laying somewhere in between, meaning there's some things that you maybe had some signals. Oh, I should have listened to my intuition or my gut on that, and now it's really validated now that I'm here. The other thing that I would say is, no matter how great a company is, and I've worked for some fantastic companies and wonderful colleagues, every organization, just like every family, God bless you, has their dysfunction. And you realize, how are they so successful? Because this is really screwed up. And then so there's, which is good news. There's always stuff to make it better and fix things, you know?
Right, right. Well, I hope we're coming to the end of our time. So, Suze, I'm going to give you the final mic to last words of wisdom. What I want to share, my takeaway from this last little conversation, is that it's really important, the story that you tell yourself once you give yourself permission. So what the other thing I'm hearing in Suze's story is, if we take this example of nature, of seasons, this was the season. It's the season is over. I'm going to move on, and I'm okay with that. It's okay, and I'm okay. I think, again, so many times we tell ourselves stories like, maybe I should have stayed and tried harder to make it work, or there's something wrong with me because I used to fit in there and I don't fit in there anymore. I mean, there's all kinds of really tough stories sometimes that get stuck in our heads, and it really limits the way you show up.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Okay. Yes. Yes. Like a movement attracts people like a river attracts a population. Yes, absolutely. Here's what I would say. I want to leave people with a couple of things. First of all, be really clear about what you want and why you want it. Because sometimes we want things because we think we should, we're conditioned to. Like, what in your gut do you want and why do you want it? And what are you willing to give up? Because achieving great things requires giving up some things. And is it worth the price? So I want you to think about 4 S's. I saw this recently. What's the situation? What are you really dealing with? And what are you willing to give up? Self. Know yourself. Who are you? What are your needs and wants? And what's your mindset? Again, like you say, Rita, the story you're telling yourself. What kind of support do you need to discern whether you're staying or going? And if you're staying, what do you need? If you're going, what do you need? And what are the strategies that you're going to employ to either help yourself stay there and be successful, or to make another transition? Because really, people are complex and complicated, and yes, situation, self-support, and strategies. Life is all about change, and we are always transitioning. We may not always be with a big T, little t. It's from the day we're born until we die, the ultimate transition. And then there's many transitions from within there, whether college, first job, marriage, if you're having kids, your retirement. We're always going through transitions, and so it's being willing to ask for help with trusted supports and advisors. So I said a lot there. That's what I wanted to.
No, you're so wise, Suze, and you nailed it. I think that's so true. So look, reach out. Check out her YouTube channel, sagelead.com. You can access more of Suze's wonderful work and what she is up to. And she's right. Like, we are actually masters at transitions when we really dig into it. But what's the story that we tell ourselves about that? And I definitely resonate with this idea of where your energy is, this push versus pull energy. When you're pushing away from things because it's something you don't want, that is not going to be the same fulfillment as when you find things that are pulling you to them. So it's just so much good stuff here, and we're late on time, so we're going to have to say goodbye. But thank you so much, Suze, for joining us today. This is the only episode this week, believe it or not. I know I don't do that very often, but I'm going to see you guys back here next week. We have 2 episodes on Tuesday. My good friend Melissa Trolfa is going to join us, and we're talking about, am I crazy? I mean, have you ever had that moment in the workplace where you're looking around and you're just asking yourself, like, was something wrong with me? Like, why does nobody else responding to this the way I am? And then Dr. Nikki Lanier, who is a DEI advocate and strategist, is going to join us, and she's going to share one of her stories about navigating fear. And I think that fear and anxiety and insecurity are all things that many of us are feeling in this moment. And you're going to love Nikki if you don't know her. Both of these women are women that you need in your life, as well as Suze. So go connect up with Suze and then come back here next week. And I will see you first on Tuesday. And thanks for being with us, everyone. Be safe going home today and have a great evening. Bye. Thank you for joining us on The Story I'm Telling Myself. If you loved this episode, would you do us a big favor to help us reach a bigger audience? Simply subscribe to The Story I'm Telling Myself podcast and rate this episode and share it with a friend. Thank you for listening.